We'll call the meeting to order. It's 3:00. First item on the agenda is a presentation from the Mill Hall Borough about their pool. Bill, please step forward. We need you to, Len, we need you to come up and speak into the microphone because there's people online.
Okay, got it.
Bill, you speak into yours too.
Sorry.
Yeah, maybe I better take. Well, thank you for having us, first of all. My name is Lenny Long. Myself, Bob Dwyer, who's sitting to my left, your right, and Tom Bossert make up this little group of guys that we call ourselves the Dolphins. Tom gave us that name. I didn't vote yes, but he thought it was okay. Bob and I serve on the Clinton County Community Advisory Committee that was formed by Commissioner Jeff Snyder. And 3 years ago, when we first got together, he said, tell us what you like about recreation in Clinton County. Tell us what you're concerned about. And I was always concerned about the Mill Hall pool. I taught a class at Lock Haven. It was a design and maintenance class, and we talked about aquatic facilities. A lot of our students would go out and be community rec personnel, and they would have to operate a pool. So we thought that was an important unit to go over. And I had the chance to meet the gentleman that runs the aquatics program for all of Center County, and he and I got to be really good friends. And I knew that they had just gone through the renovation of 2 beautiful pools in State College. And I'd see Mill Hall pool and I go, what are we doing or what aren't we doing? So that just lingered with me, and I've been retired now for 10 years. I have nothing else to do. So Jeff said, why don't you look into that? Well, the line I'm using now is we're in the deep end now. I think you've read about it in the newspaper. I think you're up to date with what's going on, but let me just refresh your memories. We started this about 2.5 years ago. The borough council at that time was on board, 100% on board. And we got some money from a feasibility study, from the commissioners. They funded that. We then hired a contractor, an architect. He put together some blueprints and some designs. We came back with a schematic plan. From that, we wrote a grant to DCNR. Again, we had some contacts at DCNR who were really good at helping us through that process. I'm going to speed this up because this could get too long. But we ended up getting a $952,000 grant from DCNR. The project, when it came back from the bid, I think it was 2.1, wasn't it? Yeah. For everything? Yeah, 2.1 million. So this 952,000 was pretty encouraging to us. I think at the time, it was the largest grant awarded for something like this for recreation in the state. And so the 3 of us got together and started putting together a fundraising plan because we had to match the $952,000. Borough changed hands through elections at their midterms, and we had a little bit of resistance, but we've been able to get through that. And now we've generated, we think we're close to about $600,000 we've raised so far towards the 952. We're pretty confident we should be able to get the rest, but we've made this pact that we're going to hit. We've been to Lamar Township, and help me guys, Bald Eagle Township, Lock Haven City, Flemington Borough, the Sons of Italy, the Kiwanis. We've contacted First Quality. They're on board in some capacity, but we have to keep that under wraps till we can work some details out with them. We've contacted a few other businesses that we think are on board. We've also been introduced to a program called NAP, which is the Neighborhood Assistance Program that comes out of the state. And NAP is a tax credit program for corporations, businesses that donate to nonprofits. Mill Hall is a nonprofit. We found that out through the accountant, but it has to be a 501c3. Mill Hall is not a 501c3. So right now we're in the process of trying to align with the Clinton County Community Foundation to see if there'll be a conduit for us. And they've taken it back. We made a presentation just last week. We hope that comes through. We should hear about that very soon. That's a great program because if I'm a local business in town, let's say I'm Lowe's and I want to donate $100,000, I will get 65% on the dollar back in tax credit. That's a significant amount of money. So the businesses that we've been talking to are very interested in that. Everybody's waiting to hear how this conduit paradigm is going to work out. So we're waiting to hear back from, we're optimistic that they're going to be on our side. The people we met with were pretty optimistic. So we're only talking about 4 or 5 businesses that want to participate in this. What else? This is a huge undertaking for Mill Hall Borough. If you'd asked the guy sitting behind me to my right, your left, he would say, I wish we would have built the pool 52 years ago in Lock Haven or Flemington or somewhere else, because for the last 52 years, it's been Mill Hall's responsibility to staff it, to pay for the chemicals, it's somewhere between $80,000 and $100,000 a year line item budget for Mill Hall, and they're doing it for Clinton County. It's not just a Mill Hall pool; it's a county pool. It's the only outdoor pool in this part of the county, not to include the pool up at Heiner, which is really a camp pool for people that are camping up there. I think it's more like that. It's had its wear and tear for the last 2 or 3 years. They've spent somewhere between $25,000 and $40,000 a year just to repair it. We have pictures that we can show you. So it's just gotten to the point it needs a new life. Tunnel renovation. I think I've given you everything. Our plan now is just to see if Keystone Central would be receptive to making some kind of donation, because your swim teams use it. I know they use it all summer for summer swimming. Food for thought, guys.
We got lessons.
You want the mic? You want the mic? Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Sure.
Can we?
Do we have a hand microphone?
We Three Dolphins have been palling around for some time now. And believe it or not, we've created an association between the 3 of us that is outstanding. Each of us have a task. Lenny always likes to do the upfront and explain to everybody how we're getting along. And Bob usually comes in with a line item that is outstanding. Today, my job, I think, is to hardball this a little bit. I had the meeting minutes from Mill Hall Borough Council meeting that I would like to read 3 motions to you that were all 3 accepted. It was moved by Mr. Berry and seconded by Ms. Coons to waive all pavilion rental fees for the Central Mountain Middle School 6th grade class picnic on May 20th, 2025, with a May 21 rain date. They request use of the entire park. Motion carried. It was unanimous. I wanted to explain these 3 motions to you so you understood the cooperative effort that Mill Hall has created between the school system. And it goes clear back to Mill Hall High School, which has long been closed and ultimately went to Baltimore Nittany High School. This understanding of cooperative agreements that we've had between each other has existed that long. And I can tell you, for the 16 years that I've been on council and mayor of the borough, it has always been the same every year, and no mention of any money, etc. It was just done. Mill Hall felt that they had an obligation or recognized the importance of the educational system. Now, today we're in that process of trying to correct the deficiency in the park, which is beneficial to everybody. We need $100,000 to put us in a position where we feel confident we can go forward, because if we don't make it, the pool's going to be filled in, it's going to be closed, we're going to lose that particular asset. I might add at this point in time, before I read the other 2 motions to you, we've never, ever had a drowning in the Mill Hall pool, which is significant because that happens too often in our area. And that is a tragedy to have that happen. Second motion, okay. It was moved by Mr. Berry and seconded by Mr. Karras to waive all pavilion rental fees for Central Mountain Middle School 5th grade class picnic on May 27th, 2025, with a May 28th rain date. They're requesting use the entire park. Motion carried again. Here's the last one. It was moved by Mr. Berry and seconded by Mr. Hetzel to allow Keystone Central Mountain baseball use of the large baseball field for practice and game for March 25th through June 2025, Motion carried, unanimous again. As you notice, no fees are mentioned in any of those motions. There has never been a fee mentioned on any of these motions. The school system baseball maintains the infield in Mill Hall Park. Mill Hall Borough mows all the grass. We maintain the parking area. We maintain the lavatories, and they're open during these events. And we do all the garbage. On all three of these motions, that's an obligation that Mill Hall Borough has a responsibility to do. Now, the other thing about this significant understanding about the baseball field, this is saving the school system probably $1 million. Because if you had to build a baseball facility to equal that with lavatories and and a parking area, which is reasonable to accommodate the people that show up, it will probably cost you $1 million. So Mill Hall Borough has provided this opportunity and willfully doing it, and feel it's an obligation they have. It's something that is there and we've always done. And therefore, I would say to you, maybe you ought to feel like you ought to ante up here a little bit, okay? Lenny doesn't like me saying hardballing things too often, but I think occasionally one of us has to. Bobby?
I think it's important to remember too that at this point in time, we're at a critical point in this fundraising. We have to show Mill Hall Borough Council that we're gonna have the money to do this. And if we don't build this pool right now, no one else is going to build a community pool in Clinton County. No one's going to do it. You're not going to, Flemington's not going to do it. Lock Haven's not going to do it. So we kind of have a responsibility right now to get after it and get this thing done. Right now, we know where the school district's budget is tough. It's tough. I was just at a meeting where Dr. Redmond was explaining, you've got to figure out where the funds are, but if we could squeeze into that budget, if not this year, next year, I think it'd really be appreciated. And I think the point on the drownings, all kids should learn how to swim. And when you have a pool where lessons are given, it provides that opportunity for, not just for wealthy kids that can afford to pay an instructor, but for the kids, lower income kids in our community.
Do you have any questions?
Anybody have any comments, questions?
Yeah, I got one.
Chris, please.
This money that you're looking for is just to get it redone right now and get it started?
Yes.
And Tom, you said about 100 to 150,000 a year to maintain it?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Preparation at this time because of the deterioration of the pool cost Mill Hall a significant amount of money. But the other significant cost is staffing. We had to staff that. We had a pool manager, and at one time we had 18 lifeguards. Normally the number is lower than that. Last year it was 12. And the reason for the variance in the number was the fact that the college students were the ones that were doing the lifeguarding. And their summer schedule doesn't permit them, for instance, a great longevity on the job. So that's why we had to have so many, but the minimum number is about 12. And you're paying a competitive wage to lifeguards, which is costly. Those numbers, that number, Lenny was pretty accurate. The number is probably 100,000. We budgeted $100,000 a year, but never budgeted the preparation for the pool, the patching, etc., because that was primarily done by volunteers in the community.
Right.
So budget stood last year at $100,000 out of Mill Hall. We had nobody else made any contribution towards that. It was a duty that Mill Hall Borough had.
That was
And they were compelled to do it.
that was my next question is, do you have a plan for the yearly money to come in every year to?
Well, I think it's important to note that we're not just slapping it together. This is we're planning on
Oh,
a
I'm
nice
sure it
aquatic
is.
facility where, where we'll have a wading pool and, diving boards, sliding boards, things that are going to bring families to it, which will help provide the income so that it can be maintained and run.
Cause you gotta pay to use it then?
Yes, there are
Okay,
membership fees, and of various sorts that are assessed, to somebody that wants daily rate, for instance, if you didn't have a family membership, which did offset that 100,000 to some degree, but not totally, it didn't really take care of the majority of the cost,
okay,
but there were fees there. Now, Bob's point is well taken. If this facility is corrected and the characteristic of the pool changes from just a hole in the ground with water that's clean to other features, it's going to attract other people, a lot more people.
We're
okay.
talking 2 slides, a 1-meter diving board, and Bobby's right, it's a wading pool, but it's a splash pool. And it's got a 0 entry, so it's real easy for kids to walk in and it just gradually comes up on them. A lot of potential there. A lot of shade areas are gonna be developed in this too. That's something that's become more prevalent. I'll just pass this around, and you guys can keep this. We had these made. This is just a prospectus of everything, but that gives you an idea of what they were repairing every year. You can see how it's just crumbling,
Right,
so.
The pool will remain a competitive pool, meaning it is a proper length, therefore timings of various sorts can be recorded and accepted in further competitions or as they move up with skill levels. And believe it or not, there was a good swim team representing the school system here this year. It was outstanding, and Scotty Beer must be doing a real good job coaching. His daughter, of course, was outstanding. The Hosleys were outstanding, and the boys team was outstanding. And they participate in the summer league, which has traditionally been held in that pool.
All new starting blocks, Mr. Scaffi. I don't know what they were using in the past, but these are gonna be new, very modern, up-to-date starting blocks, which I think will help times and.
We were using the wooden ones. My kids all did summer swim team. And the wooden ones, you put them on there and then one of the timers had to stand up on the back end of it when the kids would dive off, so it wouldn't kick up when they were diving off.
Yeah.
So that would be nice to get that fixed too.
And again, like Bob said, this doesn't have to be, if budget's passed, Mill Hall Borough has taken a loan for 2.1 million. They've just taken the loan. If we can't raise the money, they're gonna, knock that loan off, pay whatever interest they have to pay on it and knock it off. But it's for 2 years. So if you wanna do something this year, a little bit more next year, if you wanna, that's up to you guys. Again, Tom's not afraid to ask for money. Right? And so we balance each other off.
Mr. Knopf,
Well,
you have a
that
question?
100 grand will put us in a good solid position where Borough Council will feel confident that they can move forward because they don't want to raise taxes to go beyond that $100,000 commitment annually for the function of the pool. And if they have to go additional monies for payoff because we cannot raise the money, this pool is not going to be built. It's not going to be reconstructed.
There's a couple other, the answer to go back to your question, Mr. Scaff, there's a couple extra other types of fundraising opportunities. With the new Little League complex, baseball fields that are being built out there at they're called
They're
Chestnut.
catching the attention.
Chestnut Grove Baseball Complex. Let's say they're having 8 teams come in for a weekend from all over the place. We get a hold of their managers or their parent representatives and say, hey, for $100 for the whole weekend, you guys can come swim in between games, cool off. So we try to make those opportunities available for people too. That's the kind of stuff that I think will happen over the next, if the pool gets built, they're gonna have to really look at their fee structures and what they've done and how we can, I don't live in Mill Hall, and I'll be glad when I'm off this committee. I'm gonna point out, people see me coming, they go like this, it's like, close the curtains, quick, everybody get down.
I'm not home, yeah.
So,
Are you finished, Chris? Or you have other questions?
I'll just hang on for a bit.
Okay, Butch, you wanted
Yeah,
to?
it's more of a comment. With as many creeks and rivers and everything like that we have around here, kids are gonna learn how to swim or drown. So it's a good thing that they learn how to swim at the pool. So I commend you for your effort. So
we
it's a nice,
talked,
safe environment.
Butch, I talked to, Lane. Lane was the last manager,
Yeah.
Lane, and I asked her, how many, just give me an
Lane
average. We weren't in the program early enough to have numbers. But she tried to recall from the last time the pool was open, that last summer, she thought they had somewhere between 40 and 60 kids go through swim lessons. That's a
That's
pretty good
good.
number.
Impressive.
Yeah,
So, yeah, they're gonna, I said, they're gonna learn to swim somewhere or drown.
yeah.
And it's a lot of opportunities around here to drown.
Yeah.
I've been to my share of drownings around here. and it's
Yeah.
not pleasant.
Jeff, do you have anything?
Yeah, Lenny, what's, you mentioned you got a grant for nearly $1 million. Is there a time frame on that that has to be used?
Yeah, it has to be done by 2026. So we're hoping to start construction. If everything goes according to Hoyle here, bids will go out March 7th.
Yes.
We have a pre-bid meeting on March 20th. Bids are due April 7th. And once the bids are awarded and we've done a good job raising money, they're gonna start putting shovels in the ground. Oh, the other thing is Wayne Township, and this is through Jimmy Russo, they're gonna be responsible for an in-kind donation to put dumpsters there, and they will haul away, because all the cement has to be lifted off the pool.
Right.
They're gonna be responsible for taking all that up and donating that as an in-kind, which is a nice community gesture. I know they've worked with you guys with the football stadium up there too. So there's been a lot of good feedback. There really has been. We've gotten, First Quality's on board. They're just waiting to hear what happens with this NAP program. Well, like I said, we had a Zoom call on Friday with this neighborhood assistance program. So
You guys happen to know what the average daily attendance for the pool
that's
is?
a great question.
See, that was a problem when we got on, because the pool wasn't open last year.
I mean, did they have, I'm sure they have records from past years as to how
We do.
much it was
It was
used.
in the feasibility study.
Yes,
Rather than
and
the
we haven't
feasibility
gone
study.
back to that subject, and so that's an interesting, challenging question.
That's a good question.
I would be curious to know exactly how many families and kids and so on use it.
Well, I can give you some references. There was at least a busload of kids coming from Lock Haven from the daycare center. They had a busload of them. Now, how many a bus holds, I don't know for sure, maybe 60 kids. And there was a dedicated, that was a morning swim for those kids. And then there was a senior program that took place at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And there was like 40 people in that senior exercise type thing.
Twinges and the hinges.
Guys like us.
Water exercises.
Guys like us, right, Bob?
Laugh if you want. I did it one time and it's.
Oh, it
It
works.
works.
It's a great technique.
I'm sure it does.
There's no
Well,
question.
Jeff, I think we can try to dig up those answers
Yeah.
for you, and I think that's
That's a
important.
good
You know,
question.
well, let me tell you what we tried to do at the outset of this. 2 summers ago, I got a hold of Lane. I said, Lane, if I write up a little check sheet, could you have someone standing at the gate? Because I knew it would be helpful if we had some data to give to DCNR. And I said, if you don't mind, put down, yes, 13 years old, where do you live? I live in Flemington.
Where you live is
Check it
what we
off.
really want
That
to
was an
know. Yeah.
important one, because then we go back to Flemington and say, you have 100 kids coming from Flemington every day. Yada, yada, yada. Well, it sort of fell apart. We had 15 and 16-year-olds trying to do this, and they're more worried about, it didn't work. It didn't work.
Right.
And I don't know how else we could have done that. That was sort of a late game.
Well, they come from all over. Lee Schrack from Sugar Valley used to run a bus over
Mhm.
every day for kids from Sugar Valley to come over. When Lee's bus business
Mhm.
kind of deteriorated, that whole concept went.
I
with
remember
Lee.
it was a $5 trip,
Yeah. Is that what it was?
$5 a person.
Really, for round trip.
Yeah.
Round trip.
I know that Commissioner Harding is really interested in providing in some way, shape or form through a grant or something, a bus or 2 buses that would run like every 20 minutes in the morning and every 20 minutes starting like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to pick kids up all over
Good
Lock
idea.
Haven, bring them to the pool, take them back in the afternoon, which would be a great idea. Yeah.
Elizabeth, do you have anything? Okay, Chris?
I think it's a great project. I would ask that you check with David Lindsay and see if we are even allowed to donate public tax funds to a project like that, just so that we know that we're
Mhm.
not in trouble.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
We would need to know.
I say don't
'cause-
check with them, just do it.
Yeah,
Bill?
That's why I gave you that information about the frequency of the school system utilizing that park area.
Mhm.
I thought perhaps that may be of assistance to you to resolve that to some degree.
There may be a way around it anyway.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's legal for us to donate money from Keystone Central to you. But what we could do, and I think it'd be a pretty good idea to do, is maybe encourage our kids some way to have a fundraiser
Yeah,
and give that money to you.
Yeah.
like part
we've
of the
done-
class fund.
Yeah, we've done like dress down days for like $5 for teachers, or find something like that to raise funds to do it. I don't know if it's legal for us to actually donate money, but
Well-
we could have a big fundraiser and do something.
If we can't donate
What- what
money,
Anywhere, wherever the money comes from, we can accept it.
Yeah.
Okay, but that kind of gives you open mind as far as, which direction you want to go.
I even
If
had
we
a
can't-
local band say, hey, we'll contribute an evening to play somewhere, for you guys
yeah.
to
Those are
raise
all
money.
good
So we got all kinds of smaller ideas. But
If
what
we
we're
legally
looking for
can't
is
donate the
bigger chunk.
money, there could be a nominal fee
Yeah,
for some of the things
there
you've
could be
mentioned
other
to get it
options.
the same way, there's usually a way around anything. Mr. Peters, do you have any comments?
The only thing that I would add is, I would echo, in reference to our swim team, our numbers are at their highest. that they've
Microphone,
been.
please.
I usually am loud. Yeah. I would just reference the comments in regards to our swim program. It is, continuing to grow. This year was the largest year that we had for participation. Our boys team, as referenced, went 14-1. Our girls team was 13-2. We had 22 athletes qualify for the district competition this past weekend. And so I do think there's an interest and a growing interest. I do know that our student athletes are participating and utilizing the pool when it is available. Many of them have sought out their lifeguard certification, things like that, to also be a part of those things. And so I can also speak from the side of, we currently have to partner with LHU and some other organizations. I know their fees have gone up drastically for the YMCA and both LHU. And again, it's kind of where we're at, knowing that right now we don't contribute, in that manner, but we have work to partner with the borough for the baseball fields and different things. I certainly think if there's a way that we can support in some capacity, I think our athletes would certainly be in favor of it. A thought would be, a lot of times we have senior projects. And so we have many kids on that swim team that might look at an opportunity to, again, give back and contribute to an area that they have an interest in.
Yeah, yes.
Chair, thank you. Dave, I think you're just volunteering for something.
We'll certainly have, we'll look for every opportunity.
We don't need a number today
Yeah.
walking out of here, but we do need just like these guys said, we've got to let Borough Council know that
Sure.
this is moving forward and so no rush, but if you can let us know by tomorrow at 10 a.m., that'd be great.
That'd be great, yeah.
Drop dead
Dr.
days when
Redmond, do
we
you have
open
any
the bid.
comments or
If
questions?
we don't have it covered, it's done.
Yeah, by April 7th.
My sense is, from what I'm hearing from the board, there's some interest in supporting in whatever way we can. And so I've already sent off the question to our legal counsel to see kind of what those parameters are. But Mr. Peters, let's you and I talk about this, about seeing if we can get some seniors going on a senior project right away to start a fundraising project from at least the student side to get, once the students get into it and the parents get into it, then we hopefully get some momentum going
They
there.
can generate a bunch of money.
Right.
Yeah, I think that, Carol Matheny, have you heard about Carol's idea she has?
I have not.
I think it's gonna be public knowledge, isn't it, Bob? Carol comes up with the idea that
Oh, yeah.
let's
she's
identify 100 people to give $100 over the next 100 days. And that'd be $10,000 for us.
Yeah, she's
So
working.
that means people that are affiliated with the swim team, like I would donate to that. That's just a nice, simple
Sure.
thing.
Yep.
I'll
Uh,
donate to that.
Yeah.
So, there's ideas out there that just have to come to fruition.
I have one question now. You mentioned the figure of $100,000. Are you looking for $100,000 from us? Or you're trying to raise
Oh,
$100,000?
we have to raise 952,000 to
Yeah.
match the grant.
We're at
Gotcha.
600 now, give or take.
Yes.
So how much do you, I'm so sorry.
So we have a ways to go and we have about a month. This all needs to happen pretty quickly because when we get to bid opening time and we know what this is going to cost, and if we don't have the numbers to be able to equal the $952,000, I think Mill Hall Borough is going to be very hesitant to move forward because it is a burden. It's a burden to run it on a yearly basis, but the additional burden for payoff would be more than they can handle.
Sure. Yes, Elizabeth.
But the 100,000 would be putting us in a position that we can slide to get home from that point.
Yes, Elizabeth.
I'm so sorry, I misunderstood. So how much money are you trying to raise, right? I mean, you already acquired some, but what's the remaining balance?
Well, until the bid comes in, we don't know the exact number, Elizabeth, but based on what the original bid was, and we had to go back for a second bid because, well, there was a change in borough council.
Change in
We
borough
weren't
council.
In favor, we had a change in the administrative, the secretarial position. That caused some hassle. We still need to raise based on the first bid, probably close to $500,000. But hear me, there's still people sitting out there that we know are waiting to hear about the SNAP program. So neighborhood assistance,
And that's with DCED?
DCD, right? Of which my nephew is the second in command. Mike Hanna Jr. is second in command. He's the one that turned me on to that. So we hope that that helps, but we have to hope the Keystone Central Foundation comes through as the conduit. If that comes through, that's gonna really push us up.
Actually,
Why
it's
don't you just
Clinton,
keep your own
Clinton
file?
County,
Oh, Clinton County. not
Clinton County
Keystone Central
Community.
Foundation, I'm sorry.
Clinton County
Clinton
Community.
County.
Why don't you get your own 501(c)(3)?
What's that?
Why don't you just get your own 501(c)(3)?
Yeah, well, I've talked about that with someone. They said-
Well, we qualify, we're supposedly equal to a 501(c)(3) in certain capacities, but there's certain money from the state that only recognize 501(c)(3).
They were adamant about that.
And it stalled us for about 2 days until we got our heads together, how we can approach it. And we're managing that, we hope, at this point in time. All we have to have is a green light from the Clinton County Foundation and we can move forward. And we already have the memorandum of understanding completed. We just have to have everybody at the table to say, go, move forward. And when that door is open, we have that opportunity for what Lenny indicated in that program, which is a tremendous bonus for anybody, any business that wants to contribute to it.
It's not a tax write-off, it's a tax credit. So if you owe $10,000 and 65%, $6,500 is gonna be waived from your tax obligation. It's a no-brainer that corporations like First Quality.
The borough has already taken a loan. We have a loan now. Lenny touched on it briefly for 1.9, $1,900,000, because we have to cover this thing totally. You spend the money before you get the grant. I'm sure all of you know that, how grants work. You have to spend the money before you can get it. So we have to cover the cost of this thing totally before we can submit any or have any opportunity to get money from grants. So it's quite a burden. The mechanics of it is burdensome for a small community. You know, we don't have a business manager. We have a secretary and we have borough council members that, you know.
The secretary
shoulder the
that's
load.
turning into a business manager right
Then
now.
we have-
She's doing a
then we
heck of
have
a
the
job.
three Dolphins that are, we do what we do. So
Whatever you guys can do.
Chris?
would be appreciated.
Chris, did you have something else?
Yeah, have you guys checked with DCNR on a grant? Because there's,
That's the 900,000.
That's the 900,000.
Okay.
That's the bid we got initially.
yeah, because
There's a lot
they're getting
of-
ready to do another Parks and Recreation thing here coming shortly.
Yeah. We have there's a lot of bullets and caveats that we gotta follow. in the
Yeah.
DCNR grant. We have a call with them tomorrow at 10 o'clock,
Right.
so.
Anybody else?
we're
have-
optimistic that we can do it. We feel confident that we can do it.
Anybody else have anything? Jeff?
Of course, you know, you get the confidence because community members and agencies step up
Yeah,
and say,
that'd be
well,
good.
you know,
I'd appreciate
we'll
that.
support you. We got your back on this. And that's why we're here. That's the essence
Well,
of it.
all right. You know,
Thank you
I
very
can
much.
tell you as an old swimming coach and lifeguard, I hope that we can work something out here. I think it's a good idea.
Great.
We stretched to get our summer program funded, so we're gonna have to think about this,
Yeah, we get it.
but we'll do what we can.
Yep, if you have questions, you know where to find us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
guys.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
That's all right, Lenny.
Take care, Lynn. Good seeing you. Do we need to talk about this anymore? Or I think that,
We need to wait to get back from
I
David
think
I
that
Lindsay.
think we need to hear what.
we
our
need to hear
options
what
could be.
Lindsay says, and I personally think that even though we've got a quorum here, it'd probably be the right thing to do to present it to the entire board.
Well, this group can't make any
Yeah.
decisions
Yeah.
About, so it would have to be a
Yeah.
motion that would come up in
Yeah.
regular meeting.
Okay.
If I might
Go ahead,
interject, I
Butch,
think
yeah.
to get started, I think looking at like the senior project thing, or trying to find the fundraisers to get the kids involved in would be the quickest thing to do.
Yeah.
That we don't have to worry about any legal issues or bringing up in a meeting. It's just something the kids are gonna do for a fundraiser. That could be something we can see, we can organize, David,
Yeah.
and look into it. I mean, that might not be 100,000, but
Well, that's.
only takes 10,000 or $1,000.
I wonder how much they really want.
Well, there could be
You know,
multiple.
They're asking
grade
for
levels.
100,000, which means they probably want less than that.
We could have multiple grade levels working on that.
Or they did
So
have
they
some
could
kind
all
of
use it.
competition at the
If
schools,
that's something they.
have a
Our
class.
summer programs are
I would pinpoint the
70,000.
baseball boys that get to use the field.
Yes,
Baseball boys, what?
they
They
use
get to
the
use the
field.
field.
Yeah. I was just thinking, you go to every classroom and have a fundraising thing, and maybe offer like a pizza dinner.
To the
And
winner.
see how much every class can bring in, whoever brings in the most money. Have a pizza dinner. I mean, that's always good, we
You
could
know,
do.
they could,
Field trip opportunity, your classmate gets to go use the pool or something
Well, that'd
like
be
that,
something good.
or at a later time. or something.
you know, they could do bingos right here, and bingos bring in tons of money.
School district has, there's only so much we can do with those. There's a
Yeah.
gaming regulations on those.
But the kids could do one. As a fundraiser.
Not as an association with the school district, because that.
Boosters?
Kind of touchy. Boosters might, booster organizations might be able to do that too, but there's still some weird restrictions. on-
Sure. Yeah,
on
that's
all
not
that
our,
kind of stuff.
for my expertise.
Yeah,
I would definitely say hit up the baseball coach and swing coach, because they're two groups that
Mhm.
definitely directly benefit from that,
Yes.
from that area. So I'm sure that they would want to get on board with that.
Yes.
So Mr. Peters, you have a couple of assignments coming out of this meeting.
Sorry, Dave.
Bill, would you like me to?
You wanted something to do.
Ask Roger to put this as a separate item on the agenda for next
Please.
Thursday?
Yes. Everybody else agree with that? I think that's
I
the
think it's a
one
good
to do.
idea.
Put this on the board agenda for next
Mm.
week, next time, whenever it is.
Thursday, next
Yeah.
Thursday.
You'll get an answer by then, right?
Oh, for sure. I should have it by the end of this week, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Budget update. Who's gonna do that?
Christie.
Christie?
Miss
Okay.
Chris,
Yep. So keep in mind that this is a proposed budget and this is my first time presenting this.
Don't just take your time.
So the first slide is the timeline. The timeline doesn't change as we go through the 25-26 school year budget. The next slide is this is a new slide that you haven't seen before. So this is the governor's budget proposal for 25-26. Again, it's just the proposal, and this is as of February of 2025. So you can see the state subsidy, basic ed has increased. The first couple numbers at the top is what was proposed for 24-25. And then the second section there is 25-26. So basic ed has gone up almost $1 million. And then ready to learn has gone up significantly. Special ed has increased about $100,000. And then CTC subsidy has remained pretty much the same. So if that's the budget, will be in good shape, because you can not in good shape. But you can see we'll get an additional $801,455, and that's just a proposal amount.
So that's if the governor's budget
Yes.
passes as it sits,
And we
which I know
don't
never
know,
happens, but it can go up or down from there.
and we have no idea when they're going to pass the budget.
No.
Correct. That's,
No, we have a
Yes.
deadline. We have our deadline, but they don't.
Is this stuff that the federal government's doing? How is that gonna affect us?
It won't.
It won't. So, most of the federal monies that we get are issued to the state as block grants for Title I, Perkins, that sort of thing. That sits outside, the funding part of that sits outside of the Federal Department of Education. So those
Right.
are separate revenue streams that Congress has decided, we're gonna allocate monies to schools to help students who are in poverty that are struggling, Title I. Right, they said, we're gonna give X amount of dollars, and then we're gonna decide how we're gonna distribute that to the states. And then the State Education Association, our PDE, decides how that gets distributed to the LEAs, the school districts.
Okay, so all this talk about we're canceling federal money to schools is,
It's a little bit of overblown hype. There are some funding streams that could potentially be reduced. So our Title II, which we use for professional development, Title IV, which we use to support just general educational improvement. Those are programs that could potentially be reduced or eliminated or changed in some way.
okay. I was just curious because I didn't know how all that worked.
Yeah, it's, of course, nothing is simple. It's all kind of
I'm sure.
complicated and tangled.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. go ahead.
No.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Nope. Another thing to mention is it's on the table still that setting a cap at $8,000 per student. And that would save Pennsylvania school districts $530 million. And that's for cyber charter schools for the tuition.
I'm sorry, what is ready to learn?
What page do you want? I'm sorry.
On this one here, so the Ready
They
to
said
Learn is
3
another
seconds.
one of the sort of buckets of money that the Pennsylvania Department of Education has created to support school districts. So there's our basic education funding. And then there's a Ready to Learn increase, and I don't, off the top of my head, I wasn't prepared for the question, but there's, I forget what the calculation or the reasoning is for having the Ready to Learn be outside of the basic education funding.
Because that was, I think, Frank, that was their attempt to respond to the court case that they had lost back a couple of years ago, where the state is not adequately funding public schools, and that is, they come up with this convoluted formula that calculates, and I think Joni addressed that at the last meeting, where they come up based upon your local tax effort and so on to try to address the shortfall that they had. And that's what they call the Ready to Learn. That's my understanding of it.
Just a different fund, just a different pot with a different name on it to do the same thing as
To fund
the
schools.
first thing is.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
But like Jeff said, it was an answer to this lawsuit where they had to increase funding. And I think, I remember, like 107% we come up to, they take this stupid formula,
Yeah.
throw everything in a hat, shake it up, and they come up with a formula. And it depends on how much we collect from our local
Yeah.
taxes.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I think now that you all are talking about it, my recollection is this is the part of the basic education funding commission was there's a certain amount of dollars per student that really successful districts have to educate their kids. And then they looked at what is the difference between that number, $17,000, whatever it is, and other districts around the state. And so for those districts that didn't have enough money to get to that, how much successful districts pay per student or expend per student, there was this other bucket of money that was helped to try
Okay.
to level that out.
Yeah, I think I remember, it's kind of weird because it almost tells us if we don't raise enough local tax revenue.
Well, I think it's more that it's that our tax assessed value in the county or in our school district isn't high enough. So that how much we raise is based on the millage rate, but that's how much we charge taxpayers, but then districts with a higher tax base can have a lower millage rate and get a higher dollar amount in. So it's kind of, we're not raising enough taxes, but not because our millage rate isn't high enough, it's because our taxes value is low.
So the notable expenses for 25-26 as of February. The Liberty Curtain bond obligation is gonna be $400,000, and that's gonna level out after this year. The health insurance increase, we had the, Benecon was here and went over our health insurance last month. It's estimated to be about a 15% increase from last year, so that's $1,733,875. Cyber charter, since there was an increase in enrollment and rates, it's estimated to increase about $1.5 million. Alternate education placement is estimated to go up about $275,000. And that's due to additional transportation for special ed and alternative education. Transportation is estimated to go up about $275,000.
So those 200, those $275,000 figures are the same thing.
No, they're
No.
separated out.
One is the placement
Yeah.
and one is to get to the
So
students
it's-
to and from the placement.
It's really, what's that? $550,000. All right. Okay, do you have any idea what the breakdown is between, what's going to the charter school and what's going to the cyber charter schools?
Yes, but I don't think that's part of your presentation.
No,
So
I
we
don't
can
have
come
the
up with that
numbers.
number.
All right. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot. It's when it pops into my mind, I
Sure.
gotta ask it or I'm gonna forget it. Yeah,
I think it's a great idea to incorporate into this presentation. I like that. Since you already have
so maybe the
charter
next
and-
time it comes up for being presented, we can have that figure split
That
out
broken
then.
out.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Anticipated reduction of expenses. This is, Joni explained last month that the admin and staff are looking at ways to reduce expenses. And so far, this is the reduction of expenses that has happened. This is from the original budget that was proposed last month. Staff and attrition and resignation will reduce about $430,000. Curriculum reduced their budget $98,200. Elementary schools reduced their $6,500. Special education, $270,550, and technology, $522,000. So total reduction of expenses from last month was $1,327,250.
So if I could, just a quick comment on that. So that's the work between last month, this presentation, and this month's presentation, where we've asked our department leaders to go back and sharpen their pencils and say, with your discretionary budgets, what can you reduce? What do we not need to budget for? What can we think about budgeting in smaller chunks over time? What trying to do everything we can on the discretionary side of things to reduce as much as possible.
So you're saying you found another $1.3 million in the last month? Am I understanding you correctly?
We've reduced our anticipated budgets by that 1.3 million.
That's good. So I thought that was an annual figure. That's just for 1 month.
Well, that's how much when we
In
went back
total.
and re-looked at the budgets,
Uh-huh.
so
all right.
the staff, if we assumed that from this year to next year would have the same amount of staff, then we wouldn't have anything on staff attrition and resignation. But we went back and looked through what do we think we won't need next year,
Gotcha.
then we see we should be able to reduce by 430 and so forth. So what
Okay.
did we do with curriculum last year? Well, we think we can do less this year. So we're
Okay.
from last year, from when we presented this last month to this
Oh, okay.
presentation, we've reduced that anticipated amount by
I
92,000.
understand what you're saying. Okay.
So
Yeah, that's all.
so what other categories are you gonna still be looking at?
This is pretty much all of our discretionary expenditures. I mean, the other things are things like utilities, which we can't
Yeah,
really
that's
touch.
gonna go up.
Right, so all these other things, they're buckets of money that are known expenditures that we can't reduce.
Well, the one that I'm a little bit concerned about is, number one is technology. I mean, yes, we want to see your expenditures go down and you've done a great job. Thank you, the team. But I am concerned about technology because prior to this, everyone used to hit athletics and then you'd hit facilities, and then we saw what happened with that. Okay? But to me, technology that's what keeps our efficiencies, well, I'm concerned about the $500,000 for technology. What,
So here's what we've done. We've
Okay.
looked at our replacement cycles for our laptops.
yes,
And that was a big chunk of looking at, do we need to put them on a 5-year cycle or a 4-year cycle? And we look at that differently and we put off some of the replacements that were kind of on a shorter cycle
sure.
and look at lifespan and support for these things. We were able to spread things out a little bit. So my understanding during COVID, many districts bought a whole bunch of technology.
Right.
And on a
It's all
typical
gonna-
5-year cycle or a 4-year
it's all gonna
cycle,
max
suddenly we
sync.
have to rebuy all those things that are now running out. So what I've charged all of the departments with is look at where your budget is lumpy, where we have big peaks and big valleys, smooth that out so that you all as a board can see a much more consistent and reliable and predictable budget rather than having all these big peaks that pop up on random years.
Great, great.
Could we take a break for a second and do a real quick executive session? Cause I got a question that really needs to be asked.
Up to you.
Sure, we can do that.
Just take a break, 5 minutes, and Jeff is
Okay,
here, so
take a-
that's perfect to ask.
It's 3:51, so we'll take a 5-minute.
3:51, we're
intermission.
gonna temporarily adjourn the meeting and we're gonna reform when we're finished with the executive session.
Okay.
4:03, we had a brief executive session to discuss personnel contractual details. And as soon as we get the technology aspect straightened out, Christie's going to continue with her presentation.
Yep, here goes.
So we talked about the reduction of expenses. And then it's all the slides that we all know and love. So here's the 5-year financial picture with no tax increase. You can see there will be, with no increase, we would have a shortfall of $4.5 million in 25-26. And then if there's a 1.78% millage increase, the shortfall would go down to $4,027,282. And then in the reserves, we would have $15,997.33 remaining. And then with the 3.5% millage increase, the shortfall would go down to 3.5 million with 15.5 million left in the reserves. And 5.34% would give us a $3,046,965 shortfall, and we would have 16 million in the reserves.
We'd have how much in reserve?
With a 5.34% millage increase, we would have $16,077,350.
Okay. Right.
And that, with something else to mention, the 5.34% millage increase, that's the highest that is presented here. That would give you, that would raise taxes about $75 on a $98,000 home. And that's our median assessed value is $98,000.
So is that per year? So if on a $98,000 property, the yearly increase would be $75
It would be
for property taxes.
if you would increase the taxes every year by 5.74, it would go up $75.
But that's only for people that would have 90-some $1,000 home, or
Right,
the
and that's
ones that
the,
have more than that, it's gonna go up a lot more than that.
well, it's kind of a linear calculation at that point.
Right.
So if you're a $200,000 house, it's 150.
So you say that's the median value is 98,000,
Yes, yep, that's for Clayton County. That's the median assessed.
and that is median, not average?
No, it's the median.
Yes.
But they haven't done an assessment in a long time, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
I know a lot of counties are pushing for, or a lot of school districts, I apologize, are pushing for reassessments. My brother-in-law's chief assessor in Tioga County, and he's trying to get a reassessment. Something that should happen. Some calculations under consideration. The expenditures, we have been going over the operating budget request with department heads that, you can see on the slide that we talked about. The notable expense or the anticipated reduction of expenses. That's something that we'll continue to work on, is reducing the expenses. Position control, that's something that is being looked at also. Healthcare rates. There's not much that we can do with the healthcare rates. The increase in bond and principal and interest, cyber charter enrollments, capital projects, funding options. I know that, did we want to talk about committing any money to the capital reserves for the projects on the 10-year plan?
So
We
that's,
can mention something about
yeah,
that.
so one of the things that we're looking at is asking for some commitments to move from our unassigned fund balance into capital or something like that. Basically, so to do things like the Central Mountain traffic thing, to, you know, redo the traffic there. And there are some other things that we just haven't been able to fund on the 10-year plan because we just have never had the revenue.
What are you talking about, the traffic thing?
I'm sorry, that was part of the facilities committee meeting. So right now there's a pretty big tangle up in Mill Hall around the Mill Hall Elementary and the Central Mountain Middle School. So one of the things that Mill Hall Borough asked us to do is rethink about how buses come in, parents come in, do drop off and pick up and all that sort of thing to reduce the congestion and some of the damage that's happening onto the road, to the roads and medians and stuff like that around there. So one of the proposals is to create another drive path kind of around the back of Central Mountain Middle School for a parent drop off and pickup to help separate those streams. So you don't have parents crossing over with bus traffic, or that's much reduced, and separating all of the traffic of Mill Hall Elementary from Central Mountain Middle School, again, to help kind of reduce.
I thought you had said we were doing that.
We're working towards that. So we're doing some of the studies, like putting a gate there. We haven't done, I'm not certain that would fix the problem as much as.
Well, you and I had talked about having the parents drop kids off between the two schools on the back.
That's what, yeah, we are doing that.
And
That's
then
already
getting the
happening.
buses unloaded as soon as they get there, so
Yep.
they're not sitting.
Yep, we're putting all that thing into place now. So that drop off for parents behind the middle school, that's already happening. We've reduced the bus waiting time to less than 5 minutes, and we're working towards reducing that even further. So it's going to take some time for us to figure out how much of an impact it has on the
Right.
waiting and that sort of thing.
Okay,
But I
I
think-
didn't know that you were talking about something else.
Did I answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did we want to, do you want me to put anything in the notes for a recommendation for the March meeting? To commit any funds?
I don't know.
So I guess that's the question to the committee is, do you want us to put something on the March agenda for the board to consider about the commitment of funds to some items on the 10-year capital plan?
I think if the full board knows what specific things we'll be using that for, if we have to To the projects, and I think we've already talked about quite a few of them, the facilities. In the last couple months, so. It's
Well,
not just for the middle school.
Right, there are some
I
other
mean,
things
there
as
are other
well.
projects that need to be addressed.
What other things do we have on the
Go
10-year
ahead.
plan?
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that we come up with a cost estimate of the projects we'd like to consider.
Yep.
That way we have a dollar amount to talk about. And we can use that dollar amount to decide how much money we want to transfer from uncommitted to committed.
So yeah, that would, we're not asking for a blank check at all. We would come up with a specific recommendation to do this job. It would cost X amount of dollars. Would you like to commit that? Chris?
The 10-year plan that we already have.
Mhm.
How much is already happening there? And you're saying on a 10-year plan, so, but you're not going to wait 10 years to do this?
No, no. So this year's the item this year for the 10-year plan, we've budgeted for.
Right,
When we look out to next year and the year after, there's some pretty big ticket items on there.
right,
So we don't know that we will have the budget capacity next year
to do it.
to do it. So in order for us to be able to accomplish the things on the 10-year plan, we have to find some other funding somewhere besides our typical about 600,000 that we put towards capital. We need more than that to stay on
Okay.
on track with the 10-year plan.
All right, well, I'm with Butch, here's some money.
Yes, I agree. But thank you for asking. No commitments, recommendations for capital projects yet until, like you said, we got the list. That was a good idea. Then the full board can discuss it. I do have some comments about some of these other ones, but I'd like to see her complete. I'm sorry, Chris, I know we're on page 10 of 10. I'm not sure. Did you have other things to add? So
No,
before
that's it. This is the last slide. Yep,
Okay,
this is it.
all right. Can I?
Well, let's finish with that. one
Yeah,
thing
that's-
first, please.
Mhm.
So what I'm hearing from, I think, just about everybody is that we should list what we want to do and ask for a transfer of funds to the full. I don't have a problem with putting it on the agenda. Anybody
No,
else to have one?
I think
All right.
I think it makes a lot of sense. That way everybody has a list of what we're considering and the
Okay.
dollar amounts
So you'll
that's
take care of
attached
that?
to it.
Yeah, all right. Go ahead, Elizabeth. Now you want a question about some other things?
Oh,
Or here, let me
Go ahead.
ask one quick before I forget, just because, and it's really has nothing to do with this, but it reminded me of it, the loss of the ESSER funding. I just saw something recently that I read, I don't know if it was from PSBA or what, about potential problems with the government about, it sounded like with accounting of the ESSER funds, or we spiraled on that? And
We're fine, actually.
If we're not, we
just
should be, you
Yeah, we
know?
just went
Yeah.
through an audit for that
Okay.
kind of stuff,
All right.
and Christy and Joni and your team, you're able to work through all the audits and all that kind of stuff, and
Yep,
I think
and
so
I
we're
think
good.
they were pleased with everything we
They were
gave them.
pleased,
I
yep.
haven't heard anything different,
We
so.
didn't have
Yeah.
to buy any big parties or anything with it. you know,
No,
so
everything
good.
is accounted
All
for.
right,
So
good.
one of the things that they said is, well, what about the interest that you earned on ESSER funding?
Yeah,
And we said, well, we don't have any documentation on that. And then after the meeting, Joni said, well, wait a minute. The ESSER was a reimbursement plan, so we weren't given a big chunk of money that we could have invested and earned interest on, so we don't have any interest.
good point, yeah.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
Good, all right, I'm sorry, just again, seeing it reminded me, yes, you know. Go ahead, Elizabeth, I'm sorry.
okay. I'm just throwing this out there as a concept. Page 3. Christy, would you be so kind?
Yep.
Thank you.
This one, the reduction of expenses.
Oh, it's PDF page 3, so I don't know what page. It's
What do you?
the title is the governor's
Yep.
budget
Yeah, that's
proposal.
page 3.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I'm throwing this out there, Dr. Martin, and I'm,
Dr. Martin.
Dr. Redmond, I'm so sorry. Throwing this out there, Dr. Redmond. So if you want to consider this with your team, but we've seen a trend, right? The last few years, the CTC program seems to be getting more and more popular, not just with the amount of our kids taking the classes, but the way the federal government's looking at it and the way the state government's looking at it.
However, funding goes down.
What?
The amount of we're getting for funding hasn't kept up with the interest.
Right,
Well, okay,
We're getting funded at a lower rate per student than we
Right.
were even last year.
and that
Okay.
whole page is not a guarantee.
well, this is where I'm going. It seems to be of all the programs that public education is doing, it seems that that one keeps getting the more and more attention and will I possibly gain more traction as far as funding per student. Okay? If that is a cycle that we're going to be seeing, and I'm not on the curriculum committee anymore, is there a way or interest or even possibility for more of our curriculum to align with CTC?
If I could.
Please.
I think I understand where you're going on this.
Thank you.
We're well down that path.
Right. I'm sure.
We're creating pathways models for all of our students. And through those pathways, students can choose to engage in CTC courses or academic courses, but we have all that interwoven and looking for as many opportunities as we can to have CTC be a part of those
The
pathways.
regular,
Yeah, so that every student basically has more opportunity and incentive to take a CTC class. Not because they're on that career pathway necessarily, but there's a lot of academic value to the work that's being done in many of our CTC classes. Health occupations as a really easy, for instance.
Sure.
The students who go there not only can do EMT or CNA certifications before they leave high school, but also sets them up for pre-med when they go into college.
absolutely. The concept is, they're mandated to take a math class, this particular math class to graduate. Well, is there any way, what I'm trying to say is that math class is actually a CTC
Yep,
class?
that's exactly the work that we're.
So we get rid, we lose some of those math classes, but we're funding more CTC and we're requesting more CTC money.
So this is one of the things I
So
really
the
like
balance
about-
is going that direction.
One of the things I really appreciate about Kurt Lynch is he is hyper-focused on
Yes, he
trying to
is.
find ways to engage more students in CTC. And we're all on board with that.
Okay.
So yeah, we're headed in that direction.
All right, well, this is my other question I would like to ask, please, in this regards to
Go
the
ahead.
budget. Because a couple of years ago, Kurt used to come to the facilities committee meetings. He's very busy. To expand this, so we can sort of take the funding that we're currently using for, let's say, the typical math class, and it's being segued into that hybrid of the CTC math class, so the student's still getting their mandated course. How much more space does he need? If he needs it, just let us know as we can expand this program. Or is
Sure.
that something that can also be done in a standard
It's a
classroom?
normal classroom.
All right,
So we're thinking about technical reading and writing as a, for instance.
That's what-
Instead of
That's it.
a language arts class can still happen in a typical classroom.
Did you have something? I was just thinking, I thought we just moved Seth Cooper from something at the high school to something with CTC and some moved, I think it's a science thing, maybe?
Biotech.
Biotech,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep, it's another one
It's
of those
something
things that's.
in line with what
Yes,
she's talking about
exactly.
doing,
Yep,
is what we did with him.
Yep.
I think we just did that in
well, we're
December or
for
January.
next year, but yes.
Voted.
Anything else other than
All right,
the
well, thank
revenue?
you.
We're losing
All
the
right.
ESSER funding, as Dr. Baldino had already mentioned. There's more than likely going to be a decrease in title funding. And then a potential tax increase to gain more revenue. And then investment opportunities with lower interest rates.
I just heard one of the
Where we're at.
talking heads today say that they don't expect interest rates to go down. The way the Fed's signaling, so maybe we're not gonna have to deal with that. Who knows? Nobody's got a crystal ball.
Right, and it's like which of our investments, right? Because some are,
Yeah.
CD, some are bonds.
Okay. Thank you, Christie. Very well done. What's that?
Yeah, are there any other categories where you could chip away some more expenses from any other category, whether it's, I mean, if food services is making a profit, I granted it.
Food service is different than, it's a whole standard.
Right, I understand that. Food service, difference, but if there's any, I hate to bring up the word athletics, okay? But I mean, even if I don't know what the answer is, that's not my job. But my job is to ask, is what other categories haven't a little chip come off yet? And
So we're getting to the point now where further reductions mean we are reducing programs and services we're providing to kids.
okay, so the,
And that has to be a choice, and we'll talk about that in an upcoming meeting about some ideas that we have that will be the lowest impact of that reduction in programs and services, but that's where we are.
Yeah, I don't like cutting back sports because a lot of our kids are doing exceptionally well
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm not saying,
nationwide, and I know that's always the first thing everybody says, let's cut that.
I know.
I disagree with that.
no, I'm not
I
saying we
do
should do
too.
cuts, but I'm just saying if there's those things on that wish list out there, I don't know what it may be. But if
We
it could be
got,
deferred,
we've got
know.
unknown rock stars in our hands.
I know,
think,
I
you know,
know.
as long as you're maintaining academic standards, I think that athletics are
Yes.
highly valuable, some of the most valuable things.
I mean, we have
Other
a
extra
kid,
categories too, like the
Yeah.
performing
we have a
arts.
kid that
I
came
agree.
from here that's on the NFL that's making more money than all of us put together.
No, I totally agree. I'm just saying if there's a wish list item on that could be postponed a year or two, you know, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm not
Those-
talking about,
So that discretionary spending is exactly the things that I've been talking to department heads about. When they say, hey, I need to buy X, then I'm saying, do you really need to buy X now? Or is that something you can spread out over the next couple of years, or can we just not do it? Those are exactly the conversations I'm having with
Well,
all
that's
of our
good,
department
right?
leaders.
You gotta learn to differentiate between wants and needs.
Right, exactly.
Okay, virtual academy.
Can I
So we
ask
have Mr. Peters here.
Can I ask a question on these next couple things?
Sure.
There is nothing behind them for us to look at or anything going. Is there a reason that we don't have something there where we can look at this stuff before a meeting comes?
There isn't really anything. So the interest earnings one has some information on it. The number 3, 4, and 5 there isn't really anything to put on there. It's just kind of a conversation on there. And I'm working on getting better about having a couple of lines on each
Okay,
one of these meetings.
it'd be nice to know what we're gonna talk about before we get here.
I hear you. That's,
Yeah.
it's something that I'm working on in this corridor here to make sure that when we put an agenda together, there's at least a line or two of explanation so you know what's coming. I'm
Okay,
still working on it. I'll get better.
Especially
All right.
those- I'm not sure what the virtual academy is. so
Oh,
You're gonna have
hopefully I
to
can help.
educate. me.
Yeah, hopefully I can help. Just before I do, Elizabeth, I want you to know, I respect and appreciate, you gotta look at every option, and athletics, like anywhere else, is one of those things, and I get that. And so that's something that we have talked about, we've had conversations. I trimmed my budget down, I'm actually a little bit lower than I was last year. And so, but I do think that that's something that Dr. Redmond has emphasized to all of us. And so as an administrator, I feel like an opportunity to say that to all of you, like some of those conversations you're bringing up, we're absolutely having those same conversations
you are,
on the
sure,
other end of it as
sure.
well. So, I shared a quick document with, Frank that I've been working on. And so a couple of the biggest things that, I'm a little over a half year into my new role as the online, principal. And so it's kind of been early on a growth curve for me. And so trying to better understand. And then as we're getting in now, trying to understand why some things are happening, how we could improve those things. And so our virtual academy is our online program. And so right now, we currently are supporting a variety of different students from number perspective. We vary anywhere from 120 to 160 kids per marking period, depending upon how they access. And so kids access, some kids are in our CTE program, then they also take online and they go out to work. Other kids are taking opportunities they take some classes online, they take some classes in person. So we call those hybrid. Some students take all online. They don't come on campus. We have students that take dual enrollment who are out at the university, and then they'll take online. And so it really is geared towards what kids want. The biggest things that I've said lately, the biggest increase is for our seniors, and our seniors are looking to access more online courses. Some of that is, I think they're at that point of life where, not having to come in school and being able to. I also think they're mature enough that they can work at their own pace, and they know if they complete a class earlier, they're getting done. I think the biggest conversations that Frank and I have had lately is trying to better understand. I think we're all aware we have big numbers of students attending other online programs. So right now, there are 14 different online schools that we get billed from. And so of those schools, 9 of them have 10 or less kids that are ours. The largest one has 186 kids that would be considered Keystone Central kids. So similar to, and when we talk about other things, the rates are, when you look at a regular ed student, it's just under $15,000. For a special education student, it is around $27,000. I have access to some of those numbers. I know that we talked a little bit about some of those things earlier. That document that I shared with Frank, he certainly can share with you. And this is something that with Randy, we've also been talking about because we're also having that conversation of what our current numbers look like. And if we were to get that $8,000 cap, how much a difference that would make for the district. And so we've been trying to put some of those things together. From my end of it, the online school that we have the most students participating in from is Commonwealth Charter. And so CCA is what it's commonly referenced as. Right now, as of January, we had 132 reg ed kids and 54 special ed kids. And so when you start looking at those numbers, that is an enormous amount of money. That's just one of those 14 schools. And so the next closest one, I think we have 48 students at. Again, I have a document that I did share that we're still kind of working on. What I see on my end is a bill that comes in every month. Key things that I think, that everybody should be aware of, obviously, is those rates. When you look at our current enrollment on the document that I shared with Frank, it shows a 3-year trend. So as an example, I know, Elizabeth, sometimes I used Commonwealth Charter as an example. And so July of 22-23, we had 51 regular ed, 10 special ed. By the end of that year, it was 71 regular ed and 19 special ed. By the start of the next school year in July, it was 93 regular ed, 31 special ed. By the end of that school year, last school year, it was 122 regular ed to 44 special ed. Start of this school year was 124 regular ed and 51 special ed. And currently we're at 132 regular ed and 54 special ed. The numbers keep going up. We've made some big jumps. And I know one of the questions that I think this group is talking about is, one, what do we do to get those kids back? Why are they choosing to go elsewhere?
Yeah.
One of the things I had talked with Frank and I put together that we are working to send out, and remember, these aren't our kids now, so we don't have access to their email. We don't have access to be able to communicate with them the same way. But we did create a survey. I did link it into this presentation, and I have a copy here that I can share. Certainly we can make more copies, but I'll pass that around as just a way to kind of try to be able to gather information. So we do have every one of these students that we get billed for, we do have an address. So we can send a document, we can share it online, we can do different things. And the QR code allows them to scan it. It comes back into an Excel document. So then we can compile data from that to kind of see, one, we want to know what parents are thinking. Why are they choosing other options? Within that document, the other piece is, what can we do to improve? Why are you choosing someone else over us? And really the third part of that is, do you understand? And I think it's more of an educational piece from my end, that if your child is attending these other places, that there's a huge cost to the district, which is, again, when we're talking budgets and finances,
Taxes.
And so again, trying to look at a couple different things. It's only 9 or 10 questions. I tried to keep it simple.
Good.
Again, I'll share it with you guys. I can share electronically as well. QR will take you in. You can look at all the feedback. Sorry. That was a starting point for me to be able to try to gather this, because there is no exact information. One of the key things that Frank and I have talked about is graduation requirements. Currently, if you're a Central Mountain student, you need 28 credits to graduate.
Mhm.
If you go to CCA, you need 22. So what we see is,
Let him finish.
so if you see that, I mean, we have students right now that we know they are here and they know they can't graduate. So they choose there as an option. One of the things we are working on in our new schedules is looking at our credits, looking at how we're offering those things. The state requires, I believe, 21 credits.
They don't have a credit requirement.
Okay, maybe we
have-
require 28.
Yeah.
And so again, looking at our requirements compared to other places, that's a real big loophole for kids, and so to be able to go and do that. When we look at some of these other options, conversation we had was also, when I tried to break down and having been in the district a long time, I've been elementary, middle school, everything. I noticed one of the students we're getting billed for just turned 20 years old in January. They're attending there. That student was here for 18 years, did not have an IEP. Now they have an IEP and they're continuing to bill us for that student. And so,
Sounds like a wreck.
and so, yeah, it's very concerning. I know Frank had mentioned that he's got some opportunities later on to attend some conferences and different things. And so one of my goals is to be able to try to bring back information to share with him, to share with all of you, to say, what can we do? I did reach out to PD via message, and I communicated with CCA recently because one of the biggest things was attendance. They have to publicize their attendance policies. And one of the things I did is went online, couldn't locate it. I talked with somebody from there, and per their policy, they follow a very similar guideline in writing. However, their students are permitted to make up work, and then they will adjust the attendance accordingly. Whether that student ever makes up the work or doesn't, they're to follow very similar protocols as far as their attendance. But again, I can't speak to any of those things. We can't ask about the student. We can't see their grades. We can't see their attendance. We just pay for them to go there. And so that's the biggest thing. I am here if there's any specific questions that you may have.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
I'll do my best to answer.
So, but before, just so the board knows, I have shared the presentation that I scanned through while Mr. Peters was talking. I just sent you an email link so that you can see that as well.
Yeah, I would also say to you, I have not shared out that survey yet. So if there is additional feedback or anything that's not included or you would like to include, that's still an option.
Well, thank you.
All right, Elizabeth, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you for waiting.
You see me chomping at the
Yes.
bit? Thank you. I think this is the first time we've ever had this type of a comprehensive presentation to evaluate this. Thank you. Two things that irritate me beyond belief: strategic manipulation of information and loopholes. Obviously, you've uncovered this, your team's uncovered this about the credit limits. So my question is not here for an answer, but just like everything else we try to do, we always try to give the best carrot. It just seems like a really quick way to help satisfy one of these loopholes you've uncovered is just lower how many credits our seniors have to take. I'm not saying that, if they still want to take 28, they can. Okay, but if they want to fast track, and if this is the way life is going, let's give them what they want.
So
And instead-
we are
instead of
absolutely
20
having that conversation.
And yeah, instead of 21, we got 20. Or
So-
however it is you folks work it out.
So there's always a question about what are we compromising in terms of our rigor and what does our high school diploma mean? And so that's part of the discussion that we're having is we offer a comprehensive high school education that we feel at the end of their time with us, we can send them out into the world and have some pretty good confidence that they have the tools to be successful. Lowering our credit standard. That
Well,
may be jeopardizing the standards that we have
Right.
for the expectations we have for kids.
may I?
Yeah, go
Thank
ahead.
you. I hear you. I agree with you. Education is passion, okay? But ability to adapt to what the young folks are going to do. Now, if we offer, this is just something for you folks, the curriculum committee to dive deep into it. If there is a population of these kids, when they see the 21 credits, okay, versus what we have, the 28, if it means getting 50% of them back, knowing that we're gonna have to accommodate this new outlook on how education is evolving, with the understanding those other kids who still want 28, we're gonna give it to them. Okay? But we can't say, look, you're gonna stay at this school in this brick building, you're gonna take 28, and not giving them an option. I don't think we're gonna win those kids back. I'd rather have them back for a shorter period of time to really get the whole campus culture and the guidance from face to face versus them chunking out to a cyber school simply because it's less credit. So I mean, that's your thing, okay? But that's how I feel about it. I'd rather have them for a shorter period of time versus holding them with a stronghold and saying, this is the way we're going to do it. I'm done. Thank you.
Chris?
In Christie's one slide there, she had a thing about the governor could make it, we only get $8,000 a kid for the charter or for the cyber schools.
We only have to pay out 8,000, yeah.
Right.
per year.
How could that affect all of this?
Huge. You'll see in the document that was shared, I put a link in there, Chris,
Okay,
and I don't want to take credit, my secretary and Randy and everybody, we've all been
Your
kind of
team.
talking about
Right.
that, yeah. And collectively, but there are some numbers in there as you begin to look at it that show what the same numbers would equal if it was 8,000.
okay,
And so that's there. And again, we're just basing on the current information that we have. And if that were to come to fruition, hopefully it's a huge savings to the district.
yeah, it's a
Um,
savings. I'm just curious how it's gonna impact all those programs that you're doing.
So Joni's estimation, if the cyber charter tuition were to be reduced to 8,000 for a regular education student,
Right,
would create a district savings of about $1.5 million.
okay.
Yeah, I just read an article, I'm just reading an article the other day about this cyber stuff. I think it was the Secretary of the State House, his wife is on the board of Commonwealth. And I think I saw 477 million in the reserve
Yeah.
fund.
I know what you're
And they're
reading.
giving out bonuses and all kind of crap, gifts and lavish trips.
I can
That's our
attest,
money being
Yeah.
given to them.
Right.
I have
Yeah.
other educators that I'm close with, friends, that work for that particular company. I know they transferred from nearby districts and went there, and they did receive bonuses at the end of the year. One year they told me 5,000, the next year they told me 7,000. And so, yeah, there's limitations as to what we can control. And right now, I think the biggest things, and that's what I tried to address through the survey, is we need to know why people are going elsewhere, what we could do to do better on our end. And again, I think it is just an awareness. I think if you were to say to some people, you could help the district with just saving on the tax rates, things like that. If you got 10 people back, you're still talking $150,000 to $300,000 if they come back. And that's just 10 people. And so that was just my stance on it. Again, Frank and I talked about it, and I've really struggled with how to give you information because I'm not really sure of the answers on some of those things, but I thought this was at least a starting point for conversation to be able to kind of, continue. And I certainly can update numbers, and I'll continue to gather. Once we have more results from the survey, glad to come back, share any of that information at any point.
Please, and also a timeline when they have to fill out your survey,
Yep.
I mean, Please keep, this is fascinating.
Jeff, do you have anything?
I'm really glad you presented this stuff, Dave, because
Yeah.
I've been preaching this for a long, long time.
Mhm.
There are so many inequities in, I mean, it's just mind boggling. And there are people, like Butch said, the reason that there are so many of these cyber schools is because it is an easy way to make a bundle at our expense.
Yes.
There is absolutely no accountability. We can't ask for grades. We can't ask for anything from them, but we still have to pay the freight for all of this stuff. As far as their rigor, I think probably a lot of these are using the same exact curriculum that we are using. Nothing different. They're offering the same program. And whether they're asking for 22 credits, 21 credits, I totally disagree that we should water down our requirements and our rigor of our programs, because that's, just so we can compete with this. The whole charter school law needs to be totally scrapped and redone. And there are so many things wrong with it. I can't even begin to list them all. Just the fact, what did you say? How much does it cost us? How much do they get for each regular ed and each special ed?
Just under $15,000 for a regular ed and almost $27,000 for a special ed student.
And what do we get, Dr. Redmond? Do you know off the top of your head? I know it's a heck of a lot less than that.
And they have basically no expenses.
Exactly.
Well,
You
they
get
yeah,
it.
they don't have any of the infrastructure.
Right.
Expenses that we have, transportation, that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you give a kid a computer, you hire a few people to staff your, whatever they do with these guys. There's no requirement as to, like you said, they fudge the attendance figures. It's just totally wrong. I mean, we get probably half. And why do you think all these kids all have IEPs? Right there's your answer. $27,000 a head. And that's
We
not,
just found that.
and that's any IEP. So if a kid has a speech IEP, 27,000.
Yeah.
If it doesn't matter what the exceptionality is.
Sure.
So I've been on this for a long time. I know that the one of the board reps in Bellefonte has been a real leading the charge on this thing. And I would suggest that any of you guys and I know some of you are going to it, but you should try to get to that legislative breakfast on March 14th at the IU, because right there's your opportunity to speak directly to the legislators and they listen.
Well,
Because you guys were there last year.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you know that there's not too many opportunities you have to have a sit down face to face and interact with these guys. And that would be one topic. And I know it'll come up because every superintendent in that room has the same exact problem that we're dealing with right here.
Sure.
Every single one.
Go ahead.
The cyber charter kids, they don't even go to a facility, correct?
No, it's all online.
No,
Yeah,
they're
it's
at
all
home.
online.
Now-
Yeah.
I got a question. Well, first of all, is everybody that's doing an online program with you in a cyber charter school, or there's some of them
Are you
are
asking
our
about
own thing?
the Keystone Central program?
Yeah,
Yeah, so our program, we offer a variety of options. I do have some kids that stay home all the time, complete their work and don't come into
All right.
school at all.
fine, okay. Now, I just read something recently. As a matter of fact, I think it might have been something you sent around about how poor the performance was. Now I'm paraphrasing here, I don't have I can't remember. The squash is getting softer every year. But the performance level at those online charter schools was much inferior
It's a business.
to what's being done elsewhere. How is our performance for our kids that are doing it online outside of this charter school environment?
So
Is it comparable to what the kids that are sitting in desks here?
I'd be honest to say to you, Dr. Baldino, that right now, we're just starting to take our keystones. We took them here in the winter. We haven't taken PSSAs. So as we get that information, and again, I'm a little over a half a year into it, so I'm still working. But that's one of the goals that I set with Randy for principal wise, to sit down and look at how many of our students, what rate we're passing, not just passing our courses with, but also when you look at the Keystone exams and PSSAs in comparison with our own kids. So our kids that are sitting in a seat and our kids that are doing this program, and then again, go back later and compare that with other schools or what are these students. The tough thing is I can't pull up Commonwealth Charter and I can see how many kids maybe were proficient advanced. I can look at some of that, but I don't know that I can break it down to Keystone Central kids that were in.
Okay.
So that's where that data gets a little skewed that way.
I mean, I just.
But I
would hope-
think on our own end, that is absolutely a conversation to know what our kids are doing in those situations.
I mean, be honest, I'm skeptical about this. At the lower levels, I think that this online business is not a good idea.
Yeah.
And I mean, at lower levels of anything. Okay, I mean, I think that an online bachelor's degree is as good as the ones where you can buy your divinity degree online for $25 and start doing weddings, you know? As an advanced level, where you already know concepts and how to think, I think it seems to me it can be worthwhile. It's not as simple. I still never think it's as worthwhile as sitting in 2 or 3 people going back and forth. But
yeah,
anyway, I'm getting off topic. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
One last question I have for you. With the kids doing it online, can they get online and do it anytime they want, or
in
because
our program, they can.
okay, so they're losing structure by saying you gotta be on your computer at 8 o'clock.
Part of it, yeah.
We're done at 2 or 3.
And I would say to you, Chris, that I'm really glad you said that, because this is one of the things, and I, even with our own administrative team, I kind of feel like I'm the go online piece. And so we have about 4 to 5 elementary students total that access our program. It's a very small number. But when you look at those things, I also have students that are older, mature. They are structuring their day that they know I can do multiple days of work online, and then I'm going out and work
Right.
2 or 3 days a week.
That's what
And so
I was getting at.
I think it is the student, again, their maturity and structure. That's why I feel the trend in seniors is growing from
Right.
my perspective. Kids are starting to understand different opportunities and how to use the program as an advantage, not necessarily to manipulate it in a way that I just don't have to come into school. And so
Right.
I think that's over time. That's one of the emphasis points that I talk with families about is, I love kids coming into CTE. And then if they choose online as an option, things like that, I think the hybrid model is something that we offer that other cyber schools don't. And so again, that's a selling point for me in the future as we go and try to advertise and pull kids back.
Right.
But I think some of those things are definitely things that we need to look at and how we're approaching things. And again, some schools do, they require that you log in every day. You just log in. You don't have to complete any work. I talked with Mr. Eby about this today. So you can log in, your attendance is credited to you all week as long as you logged in.
Okay.
And so there's just a lot of variables in how those things go, but it's an area that I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm trying to know more about, but I definitely think there are things that we can do to draw kids back here that will financially benefit us later.
I want to make a couple of
Mr.
points.
Dr. Whitman, go ahead.
If I could, first of all, one of the supports that we provide to our virtual students is when they're struggling, we provide them a place to come and meet with the teacher and work
Right.
through their
It's a real
problems and stuff
hybrid.
like that, right? So that's another
That's good.
one of those options. So it's not just make it in cyber, too bad, kid. The other thing I want to remind you, last year I provided a report to the board that showed that of the 14 cyber charter schools that our students attend, 10 of them were in comprehensive school improvement.
So how would you describe that compared to what we do? What do you
So unfortunately, I didn't have the data on specifically what caused them to be in comprehensive school improvement. Most often that's around test performance or test participation. We have, you heard earlier this year that Central Mountain Middle School just turned its way out of comprehensive school
Right,
improvement.
right.
And that we're seeing that in others. Raw last year was able to work its way out. So there's,
But these are the cyber schools.
these are the
you're
cyber
talking-
schools. yeah,
Not
the
our
cyber-
cyber school. These are those.
The cyber charter
for-profit.
schools, yes. Yep.
Well, are we allowed to publish that list for part of your marketing strategy? All right, well, never mind. That's your.
That's
switch
not
them.
a.
Yeah, no.
Thank
it's
you,
a
Mr.
short answer.
Peters.
Yep, absolutely.
Very well done. Thank
That
you.
was
Thanks,
excellent.
man.
Absolutely.
Okay, we, I think
No, you're
we,
good. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Enjoy your day.
Okay. I think we spoke, does anybody think we need to speak more about committing funds?
Right, we talked about that
Yeah.
already.
You want to talk about the grant writing position?
So this is an idea that has come up a couple of times in board meetings. We tried to enlist Penn Strategies to provide the board with an option for that. They decided they were no longer interested because they feel that other people they're supporting would be in conflict with us. I have the information about another potential grant writer that the IU uses, a grant writing company, which I'll be looking into. The other option is, for your consideration, is that the board could direct me to hire a grant writer. And what that would mean is we have to take it on faith that this grant writer will be able to provide some level of income to the district through grant writing and all that sort of thing. I don't have an opinion on that necessarily. I'm not sure that that's a great idea, especially given that we're looking at cutting other positions. But
Yeah.
it's an option that I wanted to bring to the board for you all to consider. If you want to look at that, you can certainly say, go find a grant writer.
Chris?
I'd just give a little insight on this because I've been deeply involved with grant writing. And for us to hire somebody, do benefits, payroll and all that, it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's about
We
100,000.
found out before.
Yeah.
Because there's no guarantees.
Right.
You're better off, and there's a ton of companies out here right in our county that will do grants and they get a percentage of what they get. So
Okay.
that gives them the incentive
Yeah.
to work hard because the harder they work,
Yeah.
the more they get.
And that's one of the things, quite honestly, I didn't like about Penn Strategies is they were charging, in order for us to have them work for us, they would charge us $5,500 a month, whether or not they got $1 back on grants.
Yeah, that's,
No,
So
that-
I'll do it
that's-
for 4.
we have a fella that does grants and he charges 1% of the grant.
Something like that, I think would be
Yeah.
ideal. So I guess with this, if the finance committee wants me to drop looking for an individual that the district hires, great, I'll drop it and we can move on and I'll pursue.
What
finding grant
about
writing
all
companies.
weren't the DPLs hired like 14 of them and that was part of their job?
No, not grant
No.
writing.
No?
No.
Okay.
No.
Elizabeth, you have anything?
Yes, thank you,
Please.
Mr. Chair Bill. I highly support a scope of work followed by a potential request for proposals with the structure and items that the district feels are the critical key components, whether they're looking for books, technology, laptops, and put it out there, the scope of work, and let's see who comes back.
I hear that. One of the issues around grant writing for school districts is it's kind of everything all at once, always.
Well, if that's, well, then that goes in the scope of
And
work,
so
whatever
the
it
scope
is.
of work is find any scrap of money that you can find that might.
Well, you
apply to it.
Actually, I like
I
that.
hear you.
That's a good way to write it, just
Butch.
cut to the chase.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Jeff?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said, Chris, because if you're gonna, we've been down the grant writer path a couple of times, haven't we, Butch?
Yeah.
And both times, at least the two that I'm aware of, didn't end up being productive enough to maintain it, to put it that way. I just think we should find a company that is, motivated, like you
Yeah.
said, by whatever they bring back in. And if we can get some grant money by having a company do that, the IU, the one that Frank mentioned, used a company this year and they were successful in bringing in a huge amount for a building project. So it was, I think that's the route to go if you're going to do this. And Frank's right. You put out whatever grant it is, you locate it and whatever amount you're shooting for whatever. And I think we need money for these HVAC units here, for example. We need what, 8-9 million to replace that whole system. And I think if you find a grant writer or a grant writing outfit that is willing to go after at least a portion of that. I think that's, if you're going to do that, if you're going to look at someone to do it, then find an outfit that has a good track record.
Yeah,
and
there's a
go with
lot
them.
of them out there.
You're right, there are. And just, so anyway,
I would
that's,
agree, we need to get somebody to do it.
Or at least
It's a
put it
highly
out there.
specialized thing, but
Put it
I
out
would
there.
also, my opinion would be whether we go, it sounds like going with a company is a better idea to me, but even if we decide to go with an individual, it's gotta be no long-term contract and, produce through your history.
Mhm.
It's.
We actually
proven
have,
skill set.
Not the same way with a company though. I mean,
Sure,
they
right,
say,
and that's the same,
they
that's why I
say,
wasn't interested.
I don't know
you
if
know.
Cindy Love still does it or not, but Cindy did that for quite a while.
Well, you just put out scope of work RFP, however you want to do it.
Hmm?
Since she took over for voluntary, I don't think she does it anymore.
Okay,
I know somebody who does write grants that
right.
has been interested in a position, looking for the school district to open up a spot though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Put it out
Yeah.
there and
That's
let
the
them
thing.
come back with
It-
proposals.
Individuals are looking for, benefits and.
No, we're
and
talking about
stuff like that, right?
contracting.
And
I'm
that's-
sorry.
that's the
I'd
issue.
say
We're talking about
if we could
contract.
pull it off as a, what do you call it?
You get a percentage of ever how much you
Individual
get.
Contractor,
Mhm.
you know.
Yep, and we can decide on what our limit
Yeah.
for their indirects or their overhead
Right.
are,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Do we have to talk about interest earnings?
The information is there in the item, so I guess if you have any questions,
There's nothing there.
Nothing there, Frank.
if you click on
You
interest.
gotta scroll
earnings,
down.
it's
Scroll
on.
And scroll down a little bit.
Oh,
Go in This
okay.
window and scroll down.
All right, never mind.
There it is.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You gotta
Alright.
move your finger.
Okay, all right. Anybody have anything else? Yes. Liz.
I brought this up a couple years ago, but maybe it's time to bring it up again. For the potentially for future consideration for discussion. This is brand new. I don't think you've ever heard about it. For the new folks, we have the acreage sitting west of this school building that just sits there. I still would like the board to consider that we get it appraised and see what the market value of it is. If we may want to sell it, to see how much money we can get for some or all of it to be developed. Well, if you're looking at the school, look to your left. It's the bald
Where the
acres there.
baseball field is gonna go.
Okay,
I think, and
we Sold
then,
the land to Phil.
Yeah, we sold the Phil, right?
Yeah, we sold to Phil to
Mhm.
the first ball.
so I think it's time to look at that again and just, who knows what would it appraise for? And what the land use could be with the township. Get it developed for tax reasons.
Okay, we can consider that in the future.
Thank you. And then another consideration, I'll just throw one more out there. Don't want to overdo it. I would like the chair to consider for a future agenda is, let me look up which item. I have a little list here. The Keystone Central School District Tax Office, it was reported that the software was outdated and a security risk for our citizens. It was reported multiple times. So should the board offer that software company, RBA, representatives to come and give a short summary presentation, just an opportunity to defend their product and offer suggested options, or maybe they are trying to get out of the business and we should know now. But I would like to offer that to be on a future.
How about we put that on in a future meeting, maybe next month, and discuss it then.
Ask one of them to come.
Yeah.
Have they updated their software over the years or no?
I think they were trying to do a two-factor authentication, and I'm not sure if that has gone through or not. I know that Noel, we just hired 2 employees in the tax office, and it took Noel a good week to get them access, that nobody was from RBA was getting back to her.
That's what I'm saying. We need to find out the truth and get this over with. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it that way.
Well,
Our,
do we
our,
need to discuss it ahead of time, or do you think we should?
I think
just
we should
invite them
actually-
to come and talk to us.
I don't know that the software company necessarily, if we can't get them to respond to a tech request, then I think asking them to come here is kind of a futile request. One of the things that Joni and I are working on is providing the board some specific training, I guess, professional learning updates around what the possibilities are, because the board will have to make some decisions before too terribly long about how we want to continue collecting taxes.
Do we even want to do it?
well, that's why,
That's part of it, right?
Yeah.
And so Joni and I are looking at someone who specializes in tax law to come in and provide training for the board on what that is, so that you all have enough information to make a good decision about what and whether to collect. So, and that includes some of your ideas about maybe we can shift things from,
whatever,
the EIT to property taxes or whatever.
or vice versa, but I would still like RBA to come. I mean, they were multiple times said that they don't do X, Y, and Z, and that could very possibly be 100% true. But I would like RBA to come to show us if they
Why
want.
don't we do this? Why don't we ask them if they're willing to come and make it? If they're not responsive,
Yeah,
as
that says
it
a lot.
was before, then it's AMF, It's,
Yeah.
Everybody okay with that?
I'm good. Let's find out once and for all.
Just
Move on.
one last comment to
Yeah,
go back
please.
to about the land up here. I think before we go off, considering selling that piece of land, if you recall, that was where they or was supposed to put one set of solar panels. And so I think before we go off looking at trying to get rid of that piece of ground, we need to make a decision on the solar first.
Is there any reason, Jeff, that nobody's looking at putting solar panels over the parking lots?
We did, actually, we asked them to clear that question.
Because Burkholder's over in Milheim did it, and now
Beautiful.
their fire company is gonna do it.
It's,
Well, I think
Yeah.
that question was asked to Alyssa directly, and she said that it was not cost effective. If I recall, it was much more expensive to do that.
See,
I'd like another opinion on that.
I asked
because there's a lot of
Burkholders and
people
Weavers about it,
that are doing it.
and they were like,
you know,
well, we don't have to plow it anymore. That was a big saving.
Yeah,
Well, but I'm curious about the size of their parking lot compared to the size of our parking lot and the size of solar array that we're trying to put up. I think those are all good questions to ask, but I think when we spoke to Alyssa about that, that was part of our conversation, is that it doesn't make any sense. She couldn't find a way to make it cost positive, revenue positive for the district because of the size and shape of they'd have to put up so much metal structure to
Right.
span all of the distances they have to allow cars to move around in, all the ways they do, because it's several lanes and lots of stalls on each lane. So it ends up being a whole lot of structure they have to put up.
I'd rather see that than using good land that we could expand to later on.
Sure, but it's a cost benefit analysis when it comes down to it that the board has to make.
well, I like
Okay.
that idea is
Well,
to
why don't
get
we talk about this
optional.
another time?
Yep,
We're dragging out here.
options.
We've been here 2 hours now. And,
Beautiful,
Yeah.
good job.
all right, the meeting is adjourned at 5:05.
Thank you.